Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things, and welcome to the 12th day of Thomas Hardy. We are nearing the end, and today I'm going to be talking about the Woodlanders. The rambler who, for old association or other reason, should trace the forsaken coach road running almost in a meridional line from Bristol to the south shore of England, would find himself during the latter half of his journey in the vicinity of some extensive woodlands interspersed with apple orchards. So The Woodlanders was published in 1887, and it is my third favourite Hardy novel. My top three Hardy novels are very close together, and even when I was trying to put together the list for a fortnight of Thomas Hardy, when I was trying to decide what my favourite Thomas Hardy novel was, it was very, very hard. I'm happy with the decision I made, but any of my top three Hardy novels could have easily come out as my favourite if I thought about it in a slightly different way. When I first read The Woodlanders, I did say that it was probably my new favourite Hardy novel, and I don't think it beats the other two, which I'm going to talk about tomorrow and the day after, which I read before The Woodlanders, but I still love The Woodlanders very, very much. It is an incredible novel. So The Woodlanders is set, unsurprisingly, in a woodland landscape, in this very, very rich and interesting landscape that is all based around woodland and orchards, and everyone who lives there kind of makes their money in some way or other from the woodlands, whether it be from timber or from cider made from the apples or so on. It's a very, very interesting landscape, and within this landscape we encounter many characters. The main character of the Woodlanders is Grace Melbury. Grace Melbury has been sent away from her hometown by her father for many years to be educated as a lady. Her father has come from a fairly impoverished background, but he has made money in his life and was determined to make his daughter a lady, so has sent her away for many years to be educated and to become just that. She comes back to the town after many years, having effectively become a lady. Now, a long time ago, her father had decided that she should probably marry a man called Giles Winterbourne, because him and Giles's father had had a big disagreement, had fallen out terribly, and he feels very, very guilty, especially since the death of Giles's father, and thinks that he could kind of effectively make it up in some way to Giles's dead father by making Giles and Grace marry. Grace and Giles have been childhood sweethearts, and Mr. Melbury still has in his mind that this would be a very good thing for them. But the more he begins to see them together, the more he begins to feel that perhaps Giles and Grace are no longer on the same footing. Giles is a woodsman, he makes his money through timber, but he doesn't have the kind of education that Grace has, and early on in the book his circumstances change in such a way that he is even further from Grace on sort of a social and economic level. And then into Grace's life comes another man, a Mr. Fitzpierce, the local doctor, who Grace is kind of fascinated with, partly because there is no one else who is as educated as her in the local neighbourhood, apart from the grand lady of the neighbourhood, Mrs. Charmond, but Mrs. Charmond doesn't seem to want anything to do with Grace. We have this kind of love triangle between Fitzpierce and Grace and Giles, and there's also a young woman, Marty, who is desperately in love with Giles, who Giles just isn't noticing, and there's all of this other stuff involving Mrs. Charmond that's so complicated, and it's just brilliant. It has that quality that I mentioned when I was speaking about The Return of the Native and The Mayor of Casterbridge. It has that Hardy, epic, tragic brilliance that is so powerful. There is something about certain Hardy novels that just gives them this power of emotion, this emotional force that is so brilliant, and The Woodlanders has it in heaps. It is a brilliant, brilliant, powerful, wonderful novel. So to explain why I like this novel so much, there are a lot of things. One, I think the landscape is really, really interesting in The Woodlanders. The way that living in these woodland areas affects the characters is really, really interesting. There are various chapters in which characters get lost in the woods, and there's also a lot of significance in the fact that this woodland area offers a kind of density, which means it's really, really easy to hide. So like a lot of people can have secrets, a lot of lovers who shouldn't be lovers can meet in secret in the woods and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of significance there as well. I love Grace. I think Grace is one of Hardy's best female heroines. I think she is a fascinating, wonderful character, really, really interesting, a really strong, fascinating personality. I think the way that Hardy explores her social position and her class position and the way she feels about Giles and the way she feels about Fitzpierce is really, really interesting. I find her emotions and her actions very, very believable, apart from possibly the ending, but I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I think she's a really interesting character, and I think the way that Hardy explores the effect education has on her and the way that her education kind of makes her lonely because it separates her from the people around her, from the world she grew up in, I think that's really powerful. I also think Grace's father is a really, really interesting character because the way that Hardy looks at how he views his daughter and how he has had her educated because he wants this to be the best thing for her. He thinks that if he has her educated it will make her happier and it will improve her chances in life, but actually he begins to realise over the course of the book that maybe what he has thought, what he's always thought was best for his daughter wasn't quite right, that education and a fine marriage and wealth and respectability is not necessarily everything in life if you don't have happiness. Him as a character and his personality, his drives, his motivation and his character arc over the book I think are so powerful and really, really interesting. It is great because Grace's father isn't the central character of the book by any means. It is much more about Grace and about Giles, but his personality and the role he plays in the book is very, very powerful and really interesting, and something I really love about it because it's quite different. I also love the character of Marty. One of the first scenes in the book, I think it's in the second chapter, is when a man goes into the blacksmith shop and finds Marty, who is the blacksmith's daughter, finishing all his work for him because he is too ill to work. She is a much better blacksmith than her father, and she's there doing blacksmith stuff, this very young woman in 19th century society. It's brilliant. It makes me very happy. I also love Giles very much. He doesn't quite beat Diggory Venn for being my favourite male character in Hardy, but he is one of the nicest characters in all of Hardy, and I love him very much, and I think he is a wonderful, brilliant character. Another reason that I love this novel is because I hate Fitzpierce a lot. And I know that sounds weird, but I think it's right for me to hate him, and I enjoy the hatred that I feel for this character. He is the character in all of Hardy's novel that, aside from Alec d'Urberville, makes me the most angry. I hate Fitzpierce with a passion that I cannot explain. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful character, very fascinatingly, interestingly done. I think Hardy explores him, his motivations, his life, his class consciousness and his worries about his position in society and his sexuality wonderfully, but I hate him so much, and that I kind of like that about the book. I also think there are so many important issues that this book deals with. The way it looks at class and education, and the way it looks at loneliness and this secluded, very tight-knit community of people in the Woodlands is really, really interesting. I love the way it looks at marriage and love and sexuality. There are so many brilliant, epic, incredible moments in it that I can't explain without spoiling the book, but there are so many wonderful scenes that are brilliant and perfect and so thoroughly Hardy and so thoroughly great. I think it is a wonderful, wonderful book, beautifully written, so tenderly and wonderfully done. It will rip your heart out a little bit, and possibly a lot, but it is so, so utterly incredible and definitely, definitely worth a read. In terms of stuff I'd like less about the Woodlanders, I do actually have something to say on this, even though it is my third favourite Hardy novel, and that is that I kind of hate the ending. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's a bad ending like I do with some other Hardy novels. I feel more about it like I feel about The Hand of Ethelberta, that it is the right ending for this book. I don't know how it could have ended another way. I feel it is right, but the ending made me sad and made me angry, and I didn't want that to be the ending, but I kind of understood why it had to be that, which is almost like more powerful in a way. Like, I think for a book to have an ending that you don't like, but you just still know that that has to be the ending, I think that shows even more like the power and the brilliance of the book. That's basically all I have to say. I love The Woodlanders so much. It is an incredible, incredible book. I would strongly recommend it. Good place to start with Hardy, good place to continue. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book. It is beautiful, it's complicated, it's tragic, but it also has moments of great happiness and love, and it's wonderful. I cannot recommend it enough. Please let me know down in the comments if you have read The Woodlanders and what you thought of it, and I'll be back tomorrow to talk about my second favourite Hardy novel.